let me tell you about the first day that I met Brady and how that started, how it took place. So this is August of last year, so we're a little over a year in the past. And I was meeting with Pastor Jesus. His name is Jesus Santos. He, by the way, if you don't know Spanish, that means his name is Holy Jesus. If you're going to start a church, I recommend your pastor be named Holy Jesus. It's a good place to go. And so Pastor Jesus and I were talking about the community of Armenio Bonito, where our First Presbyterian Church of La Ceiba is. And just a month before, the MS-13 transnational gang moved into the community of Armenio Bonito. They moved from outside the community into Armenio Bonito. And in very quick succession, the community was frozen with fear. The gang was raping and extorting people out of their homes, murders. There were 4 murders in the first 4 weeks that they were there. And Pastor Jesus and I were talking, this is not how life is supposed to be. And what we have been talking, Pastor Jesus and I have been talking, that you as a pastor, Pastor Jesus, in this community, you're to reach out to the gang members and the transvestites and the homosexuals. And you're to be different. You're to be different than this culture and the believers in this culture strive for. And I said, so we have to go talk to the gang. We have to go interact with these boys. And there were boys, 14 to 19-year-old boys with automatic weapons. And so we hopped in my truck, and Pastor Jesus, he's 4'11", 5 foot tall. And we hopped in my truck and we went to where the gang was. They normally hang out on the corner of the soccer field. And the parents weren't sending their kids to school, and the moms weren't going to the store to buy rice and beans and tortillas and flour, because they had to walk by where the gang was. And the families in this culture were on house arrest. They wouldn't leave. So we went to the corner of the soccer field where the gang was, and we drove up, and there was only one of the boys was there, and we recognized him, and we knew the gang leader's name was Brady. And so we said, hey, we rolled down the window and said, hey, is Brady around? We wanted to talk to him. And he said, yeah, maybe he's over there. If you go that way, you'll find him. I said, great, that's good. We got directions. We'll go find Brady. Well, we didn't know that this boy got on his cell phone. He said, Brady, there's these 2 guys that are looking for you, and I don't know what they want. And Brady says, we'll get the boys together and we'll confront these guys. So we drove around. We looked for Brady, and we couldn't find him, so we're a little discouraged. So we're heading back to the site where Pastor Jesus has his church, and we turn the corner, and I'm thrilled. There's all dozen of the gang members that they're waiting for us. I'm figuring they're welcoming us into the community, I'm sure. And so we drove up to where they were, and as our truck approached, Brady and Humberto pulled out 9mm handguns, and they were pointing them at us in the truck. And so we stopped the car and we raised our hands, and they came around and they pulled the doors open, and they drug us from the car, and they began to beat us up, and they threw us to the ground, and they kicked us, and they placed their guns up to our heads, and they're screaming frantically, why are you here? What are you doing? Why do you want to talk to Brady? What's your purpose? What's going on? And still with the muzzle of the gun up to our head, we raised our hands in the universal sign of please don't shoot me, and said, we're just here to meet you guys. We want to introduce ourselves. My name is Mike, and I'm the missionary who runs the medical clinic, and this is Pastor Jesus who runs the church. Yeah, but what do you want? What are you here for? Just to talk. Just want to introduce ourselves. So they let us up, and thankfully everyone calms down, and we asked the boys if they wanted to share some soda and some chips with us. And so we went over to the store and we bought some drinks for everyone. And within 10 minutes of having the guns up to our head, we're sharing soda and chips with the guys. And so we're telling them, we just want to talk to you and just wanted to introduce ourselves. And Brady began to say, yeah, we're here to protect the community. It's a very expensive endeavor, and so we need to get some money from you to help us to protect the community. And again, I want to stress to you, I'm not a brave soul by nature. This is not my style, but I almost found myself looking on in third person as I said to Brady, no, we're not going to give you any money. But we have a soccer field. We'd love you to come play soccer anytime you want. My wife runs a medical clinic. You can come to the medical clinic and you can get free care. We just wanted to share the gospel of Christ with you. We just wanted to introduce ourselves, get to know you. And so they let us go, and everything was good, and got back in the truck and looked at Pastor Jesus, and he said, you okay? And I said, yeah, you okay? And he said, yeah. So a week later, Pastor Jesus calls me, and he's frantic. And I'm thinking our poor little pastor's getting beat up again or something. And he says, you got to come to the church quick. And so I drove as fast as I could. I got to the church, and he ran out to the truck, and he said, Humberto, this is the boy who put the gun to my head, Humberto is here, and he wants to accept Jesus. And so we sat down, and we prayed with Humberto, and I opened my eyes, and I got tears rolling down my face, and Jesus has this huge grin, and Humberto looks horrified. And we said, what's wrong? This is the best day of your life. He said, the gang's not going to let me leave. I can't leave the gang. We said, well, let's see if we can fix that. And so we talked to Brady, the gang leader, and we said, can we meet with the boys and talk to everyone? And he said, sure. So we got everyone together. And the group was sitting in a circle, kind of like you folks are right now, and I stood up with Pastor Jesus, and we said, we've got great news. Humberto is walking with Jesus. We're so excited. But he's a little nervous. He doesn't think you'll let him leave the gang, because he doesn't feel he can walk with the Lord and walk with the gang at the same time. And Brady stood up, and he put his back to me, and he looked at the gang, barely even acknowledging that I was there. And he looked at the gang, and he said, if any of you want to try to leave this gang, I'll kill you. Unless you want to walk with God, then that's okay. And so we got permission to evangelize the gang. And so we began sharing the gospel with these boys, and in short order, 2 more left the gang. So Humberto left the gang, and he's walking with the Lord, and 2 more boys left the gang, and they're walking with the Lord. And the gang is down from 12 to 9. And the Lord is doing some amazing things in these boys that are rapists and murderers. And that was it. For a while, the Lord felt that was all that he needed to call to himself, was those 3. And things continued as normal. We never paid the gang, and they never harmed us. But if you've never had a relationship with teenage boys that have automatic weapons, when I tell you that we had a good relationship, that kind of relationship is as good as the people with automatic weapons want it to be. The day they decide they don't want to have a relationship with you, you don't have a relationship with them. And so things went well. It was an interesting kind of balancing act and dance between Brady and I as to how much I would push back and how much he would push me. And I was on his speed dial, and a couple times a week for months, the name Brady would pop up on my caller ID. And there's no feeling like looking down, being in a great mood and looking down at your phone and seeing the name of a rapist and a murderer on your phone, and he wants to talk to you. And every time it was just, I knew that our job was to try to protect the community and to try to be a bridge between the grace and mercy of Jesus Christ and this gang. And so it was so hard to talk to Brady for months, every week for months, getting his phone calls and wondering if this was the time. He would call me frequently, hey, I need you to come to my house. Okay. Kiss my wife, I love you, honey. Kiss my daughter, be a good girl. Daddy hopes he's coming back. And the relationship was good, but you just didn't know. Well, one day, this is only about 5 months ago, in April of this year, my phone rings and I look down and it's Brady. My heart sinks. For the 100th time, I try to think, how do I get out of this phone call? How do I not take this guy's call? I pick it up. Brady, how you doing? It's good to hear from you. I haven't talked to you in a couple of days. Mike, you got to come visit. I got to talk to you. Sure, man. What's going on? I'm walking with the Lord. What? I'll be right there. So I drove to Brady's house that day, and I showed up at his house. He looked awful. He said, I haven't slept in 3 days. He said, I went into a church and I prayed with the Lord, and I'm a Christian now. He said, I gave all my guns away. He said, but the police are still after me. Rival gangs are still after me. Now my own gang is after me. And I just don't know what to do. And for 3 nights now, I hear a dog bark, or I hear a footfall on the street. I hear a car door slam. I know it's an assassin coming to get me. And Brady said, you got that blog and the email stuff that you send out to all the gringos, all the Christians back in the States? I said, yeah. He said, I want you to take my picture and ask them to pray for me. And I said, Brady, I've never taken your picture. I don't want to take your picture. I don't want to be responsible for someone hunting you down. He said, no, it's okay. I want you to ask my brothers and sisters in Christ back in the States to pray for me. And so the most horrifying time I ever had setting up a photograph, I didn't want his gang tattoos to show. I didn't want identifying marks. I didn't want anything in the background other than a white wall. I wanted nobody to be able to see where he lived. And I took a picture with my arm around him. And he was holding his MacArthur study Bible I had just given him, Spanish language MacArthur study Bible. And I put the photograph out and had literally thousands of people praying for Brady. Well, a week later, I was on the street corner just talking with a bunch of the men in the community. We were just laughing about a soccer match, and Brady came walking up. And everyone knew that Brady was walking with the Lord, but it's still, is it real? Is it lasting? Has he fallen back yet? And everybody got quiet. And Brady walked up, and he walked up to the guys, and he lifted up his shirt, turned around to show everyone that he wasn't carrying a weapon. And he said, I don't have a gun. He held up his MacArthur study Bible. He said, but I've got a weapon. And so guess who's attending our church now? Brady's attending our church. He was a guest speaker recently. So be in prayer for Brady.